Welcome to Tree Doctors. I'm your host, John Passmore, and I'm coming to you from one of the testing areas for Dickey Tree Service. The Tree Doctors test every product before they ever use them on your trees, and this is one of the areas they do it. And speaking of the Tree Doctors, we're going to catch up with the head tree doctor of Dickey Tree Service, Ed Dickey, out in the field right after this message. Will you stay with us?
Hello, I'm Ed Dickey, the tree doctor at Dickey Tree Service. I'm coming to you from inside of a tree. We've been getting inside of trees for 35 years. We get to the root of the problem. Give us a call. We know how to save your trees. We put the chemical where it needs to be, inside your tree, taking care of insect and disease problems. We're often imitated, but never duplicated. We've been doing this 35 years. We know what we're doing. Give us a call. We're the tree doctors, Dickey Tree Service. It's not hard to see what killed these trees. It was boreworms. The borer is a hard insect to control, virtually untouched with spraying and other applications. But with systemic injection, when the borer eats the tree, the borer dies. Trees are dying all over, but we've got the cure. We give a 1-year guarantee when we treat your trees for the borers. We've been doing this 35 years and we know what we're doing. Give us a call. We're the tree doctors, Dickey Tree Service, in your yellow pages under trees.
Let's go out in the field and catch up with Ed Dickey, the head tree doctor of Dickey Tree Service, on Tree Doctors.
I'm here with Stan Jones out here at the historic Clover Bend Cemetery. And Stan, tell me a little something about what's going on with this hickory tree a while back.
Well, Ed, some people, I didn't know about it. They contacted me and said that this tree was going to fall on my wife is buried here and my dad's buried here, and this is our plot, and this is the tree that stands right beside of it. And my mom told me I need to come look at it, and so when I come and looked at it, it's a hickory tree, and it's probably maybe 125 years old. It's a very old tree and a good tree, and it's got a main trunk, but then after it goes so high, it begins to split. And I guess the ice this past winter, the weight of it, it was really beginning to split, and it really gapped open real bad. I came and looked at it, and I did not want to, lose the tree. And the people from the cemetery said, well, we're probably going to have to cut it because if it falls, it will ruin your tombstones. And my mother thought we'd have to cut it, and I just still didn't want to, and so that's when I contacted you. And we come over here and looked at it, and you was able to put those bars through it and pull it back together and save the tree, and probably for half of what it was going to cost, maybe less than half of what it was going to cost to have the tree cut down. So I'm just tickled to death that we saved the tree, and I think you've told me that you think the longevity of it will probably be as long as it would have ever have lived. It's fine.
I think that's correct. It's going to last a long time, and I'm pleased that you employed us to help do that. And in fact, after we looked at it, it cracked more, didn't it?
It did. The tree, when we first looked at it, probably had a 3 or 4 inch crack in it, split in it, right. And it went to almost a foot or a foot and a half. It was really bad before when me and you looked at it, it wasn't near that bad, but you said it would keep on splitting, and it did. And you hurried and got those, what do you call those deals you put through there?
Those are 1-inch bracing rods, and we drill all the way through the tree, and there's 3 of them in there with plates on each end. And I know you've been busy working and hadn't seen it, but on an earlier segment of my show, we actually show where the wrecker is assisting me, and we pull that together.
Well, yeah, we're cutting rice, but I'm tickled to death with it, and you saved the tree. We didn't have to cut it, and it would be a big hole and a big cavity here if we would have had to cut it. So I'm extremely pleased, and lots of people have told me what a good job you did, and I'm real happy with what you did.
Well, thank you, Stan, for talking about your tree, and we'll keep an eye on it in the future, and we'll make sure it holds up well.
Well, something that it's took 125 years to get to where it's at. I just don't like to come in and just, the easy thing to do would be to cut it down, be done with it. Right. But when something has been here for 125 years, I really didn't want to cut it at all.
There you go. We need to take care of it.
I wanted to save it. I mean, it's took a long time to get where it's at.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you again.
All right, thank you.
I'm out here on Highway 91 south of Walnut Ridge. With me is Carolyn Faulkner. We're at her property here. And Carolyn, a couple of years ago, won't you tell me what was going on with your oak tree here?
Well, I was having some trouble with it. I noticed all these holes in the trunk and discoloration, and I knew something was wrong with it, and it just didn't look healthy. So I gave you a call.
Yes, ma'am, you had a real bad borer problem at the time, and we're still not out of the wood on this thing, but it's come a long way since then. I think you'd agree, and it's a great old tree. How long's the tree been there?
30-something years.
Yes, ma'am. And did you plant this tree?
Yes, my husband and son did.
Oh, so it truly is a family tree for you. That's the theme of our TV show, the family tree. So that's another reason you want to take care of it, I'm sure. And I think you'll agree the tree looks a little bit better now. My
son said he definitely wanted to have this tree saved because he and my husband had set it out, and he wanted to make sure it lived.
Right, and I know your son quite well, and he works with Channel 8, the program we're in. And what's his name?
Randy Myers.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I'm glad that you talked about your tree, and we got a couple more in the yard we'll ease over there and talk about too, if you'll let us.
That'll be fine.
She's got a couple of Bradford pears here, and Carolyn, after the ice storm this winter, you called me out and tell me about what was going on with these.
Well, I had fire blight, was what you told me. I just noticed that all the leaves were turning black and falling off, and it just kept getting worse, and I really didn't know what it was until I called you, and you told me it was fire blight.
Yes, ma'am. At that time, Carolyn had me treat the trees through the ground, and because the tree has to wall off the fire blight. It's a bacteria canker to start with itself. After that, she had the trees trimmed, and most people know you dip your clippers and your cutters between trims if you don't have them treated. If you do have them treated, you can just do what you want to. And the trees have come back pretty nice, haven't they, Carolyn?
Yes, they have.
I'd like to ask Carolyn to tell me a little story about this big old Bradford pear here in her backyard.
Well, about 20 years ago, my husband and I had purchased two small saplings from a local nursery to set out, and we didn't get them set out as soon as we intended to. So when we finally went around to check them, to set them out, they had died, or so we thought. So my husband just took them off out to the edge of the field and threw them away. We thought, you know, they were just dead. So about a year later, my husband was out in the field, and he saw those trees, and they had taken root in the ground during that time. So he dug them up and brought them, and we planted one here in my yard and another one in my mother's yard, and they are both strong, healthy trees now. So never give up on them.
That's great. So like Miss Faulkner says, you don't sell a tree short just because it's the fall of the year and don't have any leaves. You might want to give it till spring. It certainly is a beautiful Bradford pears. The ones that we just showed earlier in the program in the front yard, they don't have the size this one does it?
No, these are, this is an older tree, of course, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. You recall about how long you've had it out?
Probably about 25 years, something like that.
Well, most people will tell you, you don't get that many years out of a Bradford pear, but proof's in the pudding here. If you give it a little care, you can, can't you?
That's right.
Well, I want to thank you, Carolyn, for talking to me about this.
You're welcome.
You know, years ago, this whole country was covered with cypress trees like this. And, our forefathers come in and cut them down and, build houses and utilize the timber. And there's not too many of these old majestic giants left around. We're a few miles out of Alicia, back towards Shirey Bay area, and it's a pretty good sized cypress. And most people don't realize that cypress trees can get this big. You take care of a tree, it can get big. This tree was probably had a bunch of sister trees around it at one time, and for some reason they chose to leave this one as a marker tree, as a line tree. Who knows why it was spared to saw, but it was, and I'm glad it was, because we're here looking at it. And I just wanted you to see this big old cypress tree, and there's still some big trees around. That's what this show's about, is about big trees. I'm here at the home of Benny and Margaret Cruz in Jonesboro, and here a few years ago, Mr. Cruz had this house built, and I talked to him over the last 2 or 3 years about his yard and his trees, and we worked on them. And tell us a little bit about what's going on, Mr. Cruz, and behind us here.
Well, when we moved here, the yard was really undeveloped, and we came in here and we sodded, got the yard good shape, and then from there we went to our woods, and our woods were all growed up, and we kind of went in there and started cleaning them out. We did a little of it at a time, and we took some of the undesirable trees out, and then we went from there, and then now I went in there and put rock in my creek back there, and we're in the process of hopefully putting a gazebo and some other things back there and make it the house look a lot better.
Yes, sir. So you're really expanding your yard, and if folks, the viewers can look, it used to look just like that woods that's way back behind us there with all the undergrowth. And what he's done, he's making the best of his trees there. I gave him some flagging here a year or so ago, and he had flagged all the dead and undesirable trees and little saplings that he didn't want to keep. I flagged those, lived with those a little while, and had them removed, and it's a constantly evolved into, it's getting very close to being a very beautiful thing back there, Mr. Cruz. And what'd you say the next thing you'll be doing?
The next thing we're probably going to do, we're going to put a bridge across the ditch or the creek, and then we're going to put us a gazebo back there.
Oh, that will be nice.
And I don't know, we may put some concrete benches or something back there. I'm not just sure just what all we put back there, but we're just trying to make it look better.
Well, so you can enjoy your yard too, can't you?
It's been a lot of work.
Oh, yes, sir, and it has, and like I say, it's been well over 2 years I've been involved with it. Mr. Cruz had me treat all the trees he wanted to keep back here, and I don't think we've lost a single tree since then, and the trees are looking good, and what he's doing is looking good. It's turning into a, well, like we talked about, a park, isn't it?
And that's what it's looking like.
Yes, sir, and I'm just as pleased with it as you are, and the new sod that you've laid down. And I might add, he's added sprinkler system to here to keep his trees and his lawn up. So he won't. I know he don't want to keep working like this forever on this yard. So he's getting it where it's self-sustaining itself. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we're getting it to the point now where I'm just about tired working on it. I just, it's been about a 3-year project, and we're getting ready when we just want to enjoy it and let it take care of itself. But it has been a long process, and like you said, the woods originally, they were growed up, and we went in there the first year and we cleaned some of it out, and then we came back the next year and worked on it, and we just finished it up this year, really. And so, yeah, what you're seeing now is it's been a revolving thing.
Yes, sir, and I might add, he didn't turn no bulldozer loose either. It was strictly manpower that did the biggest part of this back there. So the root systems was protected, and so he won't have to pay out, treating these trees again in the future because of took the time and effort to do it right. He's got a little purple plum here that he informed me a couple years ago. I remember where it sat, right over where he had that swimming pool put in. And Mr. Cruz, how'd you get this moved?
Oh, we took a shovel and dug it up and moved it down here and dug a hole and buried it. And that's how we moved it. This ground is pretty hard also, but we did manually move it. We took a shovel and dug it up because it was in the way down there where my swim pool is. So I was going to lose it, so we just dug it up and we found a place that we felt like it would be a good location, and we moved it down here, and it's doing fine.
And so this is the second year. What extra preparations did you make, any?
Not any, just got some peat moss and put a little moss down and put some water in it and put the tree in it and put dirt around it.
All right, did you do it in fall, or when did you do it?
It was probably spring, probably early in the year.
So that goes to show our viewers that even though it's about 1.25 inches, 1.5 inch tree, if you just take a little bit of time and move it, this is the second year, the tree's not stressed out, it's doing well. It's purple plum, it's a high dollar tree, pretty tree. And he done it himself, no outside help. And I want to thank you for talking about your little tree.
All right, thank you.
This tree kind of shows how a tree can coexist with us with a lot of unnatural things going on. You can see this homeowner here has allowed this chain link fence to, the tree has just totally took it over. Now the fence is several inches growed in the tree. What should have been done several years ago was just cut the fence immediately around the tree area, and it would have been a viable fence, and it wouldn't have grown into the tree. It's also right against this curve here that it's pushing on. So those trees had a tough time. And you can see little boreholes here where it's starting to take its toll. So if you see this going on in your yard, don't let it get this bad. There's, you know, a simple little clipping and shaping, and a lot of times will go a long way and get a lot of bang for your buck out of that few minutes you spend saving that tree. Because who knows, it could be your family tree or somebody's. We're here in Jonesboro at the home of Charles and Autumn Cotchell, and he's got a big tree here. And Charles, what made you call me in about this tree?
Well, I saw you on your show there, and I saw you sitting inside the tree, and I've got a hole enough, big enough here where you could climb inside and probably spend the night. So I figured the tree needed help, and you were the doctor to fix me up.
All right, and what I told Charles after looking at the tree is he's got a bore problem in addition to the cavity, and I'm going to talk a little later about how we're going to work on that cavity. And Charles, after I get this all done, I'd like to catch up with you again, and we'll see what you think of the tree. Will that work for you?
Yes, sir. I appreciate you coming out here, and look forward to getting this tree fixed up.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. We talk about it, and we'll be talking later.
All right. Thanks, sir.
We're here at the home of Stephen and Leila Dickinson, and got a big oak tree they called us in about. Stephen, what's going on with your tree?
Well, I noticed the bark was peeling off first, and then I noticed some insects getting inside of it. So we thought that it was on its way to dying, and we didn't know exactly how to treat it or what to do. So we've seen y'all's ad in the paper, and looked you up in the phone book and heard a lot about you guys, your reputation. So we thought we'd give you a call, go from there. So here you are.
Right, and Leila, when you was actually here when I first came to the residence, and what concerns you about this tree?
Well, mainly it's for shade, and we don't want to lose the tree. That was my main concern. We'd love to keep it. And you had said when you came the first time that the tree it must have got under stress and struck by lightning, and that's what caused the bugs to set in. And you showed me, you know, where it had struck and gotten stressed. So.
Yes, ma'am, and that's what they're having me do. We're treating this with a soil injection to take care of the insects and putting the enzyme and vitamins and minerals to help the tree recover. And maybe we'll visit back with y'all here in a year or two, and we'll just see how we're doing with this tree.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I appreciate y'all taking time talking about your tree.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You might wonder why we use the soil injection method as opposed to the trunk injection method on this. And, about 4 reasons. One of them is the tree got hit by lightning. It's got a dotty area on one side. It won't accept chemicals through the trunk in that whole area. So you can't very efficiently treat this tree that way. Second reason being it needed more than just a insecticide. It needed some vitamins, minerals, multi-nutrients, and by using the soil injection method, I bypassed having to put 2 products into the tree through the trunk method, which in turn saved the homeowner quite a bit of money. And it let us put an enzyme in there to help it grow new feeder roots for it to recover. Can't get that either one in the trunk method, so that's why the soil injection method. And then we sprayed the trunk because some of the places the bark was pulled loose on it, and of course the insects, they have their eggs and behind that, and we wanted to have a winter kill of that, get rid of those so they don't come out and cause the client problems in the future. And the fourth reason being you get a long residual from your soil injection method, and that's what this client needs. He needs it for the long term. So I think that kind of sums up the reason we did that. I'm here with Mark McNabb. We're inside the canopy of this big old massive magnolia. And Mark, tell me a little bit about what you let go on with your magnolia tree.
I just let it do what it comes natural to it. We don't really do anything. When we bought the house about 8 years ago, it was obviously like this, and we've never known it any other way.
Right. Most people aren't aware that magnolia will self-propagate itself by the branches going into the ground. It will root themselves and get a new offshoot, and this one, he has an abundance of that going on here, and it keeps the base of his tree filled. And you just don't see that anymore like you used to years ago, but you can actually just take a branch like this and lay something on it and hold it to the ground and put some dirt in the center, and it will root itself there, and you can actually make a separate tree that way. And you've done that in a few cases here, haven't you, Mark?
Yeah, and like I said, we just let it do it naturally, but we like the privacy, and living on Oak Street here, it creates a barrier between our house and the road and gives us a sense of privacy and our kids and through the house. So we actually like it. We want to get as full as it can be.
Right. Now, I think it's great too, and your dog, and I'm sure your kids enjoyed this little fortress area too, and I appreciate you taking a minute and talking about your Magnolia.
Sure, you're welcome.
You know, you can catch Tree Doctors every Saturday and Sunday morning at 6 o'clock right here on KAIT. Let's take a break, but we'll be back right after these messages.
The tree doctors at Dickey Tree Service can inject a zap back in your tree's sap. Research has showed that ice-damaged trees are stressed, and stressed trees lead to insect and disease attacks. Micro tree injection is the answer for your trees. Micro tree injection is a closed system, delivering the exact dose of systemic chemical directly to the sap stream of the tree. Once the problem is identified, the tree doctors at Dickey Tree Service can inject vitamins, minerals, or insecticide directly into the sap stream of your trees. This bypasses the roots and provides immediate results. Micro tree injection has been university tested and field proven for over 35 years. After the tree doctors at Dickey Tree Service treat your trees, you receive a written 1-year guarantee. We won't treat a tree we don't think we can help. Let the tree doctors at Dickey Tree Service put the zap back in your tree's sap.
Do you have an interesting tree that you'd like for us to see? Why don't you go to dickeytree.com and email us, and we'll come by and look at it. Right now, let's go back in the field with Ed Dickey, the head tree doctor at Dickey Tree Service.
I'm here at the home of Ed and Barbara Lawson in Jonesboro, and here a little over 3 years ago, treated all these trees for Ed and his wife. He had a borer problem, put a bracing rod in behind him, Ed here, and the ice storm did a number on your trees, didn't it?
Did a bad number on me. We had ice on every tree out here and lost a lot of limbs, and all of my evergreens actually were bent almost over double.
I remember your wife, Barbara, had called me right after that, and I come and looked at what you had done, and Ed had took a rope and had pulled them back, and I informed her at the time that there wasn't anything more than I could do. Ed had handled it right, and I stopped back in and check on it, and the biggest part of the trees have come back right.
We lost the top out of one tree and everything else survived.
Well, that's great. He just took the extra time to assist where Mother Nature put a load on him. And you can see here he's still got one tied off. It hadn't adjusted yet. What else do you notice after we treated these a little over 3 years ago, Ed?
Well, my borers have gone, that's for sure. And trees seem to be a lot fuller and a lot greener. They green up earlier in the spring, seem to last longer in the fall. So they turned out real well.
Yeah, sure. That's a side thing of it, that you get a healthier tree makes a healthier tree, needless to say. And so it just kind of helps itself by you helping it, and the tree just shows you. You've got, have you ever counted how many different types of trees you have in your yard here?
No, I have not. It's 8 or 9. There's about everything you can think of.
Right. I commented on a beautiful yard. I know the camera won't show all of it, but he's got a nice swing for him and his wife that I enjoy out there. And he just informed me he just become a granddaddy. How old's the new baby?
3 weeks old.
Well, congratulations.
Looks just like his granddaddy.
There you go. There you go. I'll tell your wife you said that. But congratulations on that. And in the future we'll come back and we'll see if them these other pines don't act like the other ones did and straighten back up for you.
Come back this winter and see how I do it again.
Oh, I hope we don't have another ice storm. Everybody else does too. But it could happen, folks. But there is things you can do when it does happen. And I want to thank you for talking about it.
Very well.
We're here at this large oak tree that's got a cavity in it at the base. The owner called me in and he wants to save this tree. We can see why. It's right over his residence, the main tree in the yard. And we're going to have to do two things. It's got a borer problem, and we're fixing to soil inject to take care of the borer problem, but we're going to be filling this cavity the old way, the old-fashioned way, which still works, and we'll actually be cementing in this whole section here. And we'll come back a little bit later on in the show, and you'll see how it looks after it's fixed. And it'll do a couple of things. It'll make the tree a little stronger. And the new norm practice is we've got away from that a lot. And, but in some cases we still do it, and here's one of those cases, and you're about to see the results of what happens after we do that. Now we built a temporary form for the concrete. We mixed up some. He's starting to drop it into the top cavity part. We'll gradually pack it and let it fill in there and settle on down. And eventually we'll have the whole thing will be filled with concrete. The form will hold it in place. We'll stay there a couple of days. It'll take several more bags of this to get this accomplished, but like I said earlier, it's quite labor intensive, but really worthwhile when you've got a tree of this status that's sitting close to a residence. And hopefully here in a little bit you'll see why we go to this much trouble. As you can see, he's on his 10th bag here. We're still just a little over halfway up the hole, so you can see why a lot of the newer type tree people stop doing this. There's a lot of pluses to this. The negative part is quite, like I said, quite labor intensive, but once you get it done, it's done. It's not like the foam that you put in there and the woodpeckers peck it out and the squirrels eat it and other critters get it. You get concrete, you know what concrete is. It's there. And we used a high strength. So it's worth the extra trouble. We cleaned it out, sprayed in there to kill anything behind it, and built us a form. Hand mixed the concrete, put several bags of mixed concrete in there, filled the hole. It's sealed in there. We'll leave that 2 or 3 days. Pull our form off, fill any imperfections. The form is made to where the concrete is actually inside the cambium of the tree, so the tree will grow over it in future years. That's very important if you try this yourself. And when we're done, we'll spray it with a camouflage paint just for make it look better. And the tree will be structurally sound. It'll keep any more rot or anything out of there. Actually makes the tree looks better, because you can see why they wanted to make it look good. It's an important tree right in front of their house. So that's how we do tree surgery. Give us a call, we can do that for you.
Well, Ed called me this morning, said they'd taken the form off on this tree here that they just put the concrete in. It looks great. It's certainly a whole lot stronger, and maybe it'll last another 100 years. Well, that's all the time we have today on Tree Doctors. I'm your host, John Passmore, for Ed Dickey. We appreciate you watching the program. Remember, if you have any questions, you can go to dickeytree.com and email Ed there, or call the number below. Catch us every Saturday and Sunday at 6 a.m. right here on KAIT. Until next time, thank you for joining us for Tree Doctors.